This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Monday, October 26th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. We begin our broadcast in Nigeria, where life in Lagos appears to be gradually returning to normal Monday, with a curfew in place only from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. local time. President Muhammadu Buhari on Sunday launched an appeal for peace in Nigeria, where the authorities are struggling to end looting after 2 weeks of protests. Buhari said he supports the principle of a judicial inquiry in Lagos to, quote, bring justice to the peaceful protesters who lost their lives, to the security men who were murdered, and to those who lost property during the days of violence. Street cleaners working to remove debris caused by days of violence from major roads and traffic returned to normal. Authorities in Nigeria's biggest state, Lagos, have relaxed the around-the-clock curfew as they attempted to restore order following days of unrest. Violence erupted last week in the wake of the alleged shooting of anti-police brutality protesters by security forces. The unrest in Nigeria's sprawling commercial hub, a city of 20 million, initially escalated last Tuesday night when the daily 24-hour curfew was first announced. Meanwhile, at the Vatican on Sunday, during his devotion commemorating the incarnation of Jesus, Pope Francis expressed his closeness to the Nigerian people, hoping for a just end of clashes between police and protesters. The pontiff said, quote, dear brothers and sisters, I'm following it with increasing worry the news that comes from Nigeria about the violent clashes recently happening between police forces and some young protesters. Let's pray to God that all kind of violence is avoided in a constant search for social harmony through a promotion of justice and common well-being. During his mass, the pontiff also named 13 new Roman Catholic cardinals, including, according to multiple media reports, Washington, D.C. Archbishop Wilton Gregory, who would become the first Black U.S. prelate to earn the red hat. 9 are under the age of 80 and are eligible to enter a conclave to elect his successor after his death or resignation. They are to be elevated to the high rank at a ceremony known as a consistory at the Vatican on November 28th. As the protests demanding police reform and an end to a police unit also known as SARS continue in Nigeria, observers say the U.S. and the international community have a role to play. VOA Salam Solomon has the story.
American politicians and civil rights leaders are lending their voices to the protests in Nigeria against abuses by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, or SARS, a police unit accused of excessive violence against civilians. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, a Texas Democrat, wrote a letter along with the Congressional Black Caucus to Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, urging him to reform the security sector and allow people to demonstrate peacefully.
What is happening now with SARS and the peaceful protest of Nigerians that has been responded to by bloodshed and violence is unacceptable.
She also wrote a letter to the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and to the United Nations, saying the U.S. must call for a special meeting of the UN Security Council to investigate human rights abuses. Jackson Lee's congressional district is home to the largest concentration of Nigerian Americans in the country.
We want the United States to take a firm stand with President Buhari against this violence and to recognize that people who protest have a right to do so without violence. And they particularly have a right to be able to utilize their streets in free expression of their voice.
The SARS protests began this month following the release of a video showing officers killing a man who was dragged out of a hotel. Nigerians began sharing other videos showing abuse and extrajudicial killings, leading to growing outrage and widespread demonstrations. The Nigerian government announced the dissolution of the unit, but protests have continued, and recently security forces opened fire on protesters in Lagos's Lekki Toll Gate Plaza, killing at least 12 people, according to Amnesty International. Opal Tometi, an American human rights activist and co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement, has particularly close connection to the protests since her parents are Nigerian. She sees parallels between what is happening there and the BLM movement that swept the U.S.
Those types of injustices that are taking place in Nigeria are also linked to the struggles that we have in different parts of the world. We are united for a just Nigeria. We are united in an end to this police brutality and an end to the extrajudicial killing of its Nigerian citizens.
Tometi has been in regular contact with friends and family in the country and said virtually everyone has a story to tell about abusive or frightening encounters with the police. The recent incidents have simply been a tipping point that galvanized the community to act, she said.
And I think what we're seeing now is a courageous movement that has risen up, that has said enough is enough. They're tired, especially in the midst of this time where we are in a global pandemic. People are already living on the brink.
Jackson Lee has heard similar stories from her constituents. She recently marched with them at the Mickey Leland Federal Building in Houston and invited them to her district office to share their concerns.
They had a video showing the outright shooting by military persons that would really break your heart, because you know that unarmed persons lost their life that night, someone's young son or daughter.
She said Nigerian Americans are fearful of worsening violence that could spiral out of control.
They don't want their country to turn into a quagmire of civil war or a quagmire of a dictatorial type government that uses the military to brutalize its citizens. They want the Nigeria that they love, and they want the Nigeria that has the capacity to be a democratic, free, safe, and nonviolent community.
Rights groups said they have documented extensive abuse during the crackdowns against protesters. Adote Akwe is the managing director for government relations at Amnesty International USA. He told VOA that there is evidence that actions by security forces had been planned. Amnesty International also said at least 56 people have been killed over the past 2 weeks in protests.
In Al-Wassa, we found that there was credible evidence that there was efforts to shut off short-circuit TV that would have monitored how the police behaved, which indicates that they were planning a very brutal crackdown, and that's unfortunately what happened.
He urged the Nigerian government to exercise restraint.
So we continue to stick with the calls for the Nigerian government to respect the right to nonviolent protest, respect the individual rights of the protesters, for the protesters who've been arrested to be released, and also, of course, for the Nigerian government to engage in genuine, comprehensive security sector reform and accountability for the SARS unit members.
Salim Solomon, VOA News, Washington.
6 students were killed in Cameroon on Saturday in an attack on a school in the southwest region of the country. A dozen others were wounded. A 7th student, a 12-year-old girl, died Sunday from wounds sustained when gunmen stormed the school. The attack on the school in the region where separatist insurgents have been battling government forces since 2017 is drawing widespread condemnation and is likely to add further pressure on the government to do more to end the conflict. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the attack in the town of Kumba, where the grieving father of the 12-year-old girl said he saw the gunmen drive by on motorcycles in the direction of the school and then back a barrage of gunfire. Staying in West Africa, where Guinea is bracing for more post-election unrest after the Electoral Commission Thursday declared preliminary results showing President Alpha Conde was re-elected for a 3rd term. Marco Simoncelli has more from Conakry.
Guinea's President Alpha Condé has won a controversial 3rd term with 59.49% of the vote, the National Independent Electoral Commission officially declared on Saturday. Even before the results were announced, though, opposition leader Cellou Dalein Diallo alleged fraud and declared himself the winner, prompting street protest by supporters of his Union of Democratic Forces of Guinea and clashes with security forces that left at least 10 dead. Opposition activists such as Mamadou Biloba say they will keep protesting Condé's re-election.
We are mentally ready because we understood we are facing a dictator. So psychologically, we're ready. Ready to what? To be arrested, to experience violence, to be killed. If you are ready to face all of this, you are not scared about it. Our life is not more valuable than those who have already died.
Nos vies ne coûtent pas plus cher que ceux qui sont déjà morts.
Condé's supporters say the third term was legally allowed by a March constitutional referendum. However, authorities have locked up referendum critics, such as Oumar Sylla of the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, or FNDC. He spoke by phone from prison.
I'm in prison simply because I went against the decision of President Condé to run for a third mandate, which our constitution forbids.
Amnesty International says dozens of protesters have been killed and wounded this year in election-related violence, but no security forces have been held responsible.
Till now, the country is living under an impunity cover. Everyone denounced it. We human rights activists denounced it. Political figures denounced it. But until now, there are no investigations.
In Guinea's political standoff appearing to back down, security forces are bracing for more post-election unrest. Marco Simoncelli for VOA News, Conakry, Guinea.
Tanzania is set to hold general elections on October 28 to elect the president and National Assembly. Chama cha Mapinduzi, the ruling party since independence in 1961, has never lost an election. The CCM party, led by incumbent President John Magufuli, who is running for his second term in office, Tundu Lissu is running for president, representing the opposition Chadema party. And in our final We Are Tanzanians episode, VOA Swahili service spoke to Roxana Abdul, a Tanzanian businesswoman, about her feelings and concerns ahead of the upcoming election.
My name is Roxana Abdul. I'm CEO of House of Jeans shops in Dar es Salaam and in Mwanza. I think this election is important to me because we're going to get a good leader who cares about the people, and not just as well. He'll raise the economy level and maintain a peaceful nation. The leader that I want is a hardworking leader, a leader who has patience and who favors business people like us, and will lower the taxes and give us priority because we're adding a lot to the Tanzanian income. Because Tanzania is a peaceful country, I'm not scared of anything. I think the election will be fair. There's nothing that I'm scared of. We love peace, and I'm sure it will be a peaceful election. The Tanzania that I want to see is a peaceful Tanzanian who cares about people without discriminating because of color or tribe, and also practices good democracy. I would like to see a Tanzanian who raises the country's economic level. The main thing I like is the peace that we have in this country. Our country is a peaceful country, and the people have a lot of love.
Doctors know that viruses can affect pregnant women and their developing fetuses. They are scrambling now to understand the effects of COVID-19 on pregnancies. VOA's Carol Pearson has more.
When a woman is pregnant, her immune system changes to protect her growing baby. But these changes make her more vulnerable to certain viruses, such as the flu, and increase her risk of serious health problems. So far, studies about pregnant women infected with the coronavirus show both reassuring and alarming results.
They had increased hospitalization, and they had increased ICU admission, and they had increased receipts of mechanical ventilation when they compared them to women of the same reproductive age with COVID-19 that were not pregnant.
Doctors are trying to determine if COVID-19 is more dangerous for pregnant women than getting the flu.
It appears at this point that it is actually not as severe as influenza is during pregnancy.
Yet the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says pregnant women who get COVID-19 and are hospitalized have higher rates of serious illnesses, are more likely to have miscarriages, deliver babies prematurely, and more likely to have stillborn babies. Other studies contradict these results.
I think that we need to take a step back a little bit in that since COVID-19 is so new, we don't have all of the data that we really need to make an assessment as to what level of risk it imparts on a pregnant woman.
For example, could stress be a factor? Pandemic-related hurdles to prenatal care, like lockdowns, prevented some women from getting checkups.
Take a breath and go right back at it.
Or even getting medical care when giving birth.
Having a baby at home, but baby is not okay and needing assistance.
Some women put off seeing their doctors out of fear of getting the coronavirus.
Prenatal care, particularly in the third trimester, is one of the ways that we ensure both mother's health and ensure that there aren't stillbirths.
Until more is known, pregnant women need to protect themselves from the coronavirus by wearing face masks, social distancing, avoiding crowds, and practicing good hand hygiene. Doctors say women also need to call their physician if they notice decreased fetal movement. Carol Pearson, VOA News, Washington.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, we'll preview the final week of the U.S. presidential campaign. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Our series of video explainers about the U.S. presidential elections continues this week. Today's topic, voting by mail.
Welcome to VOA Africa. In the November 3rd election for U.S. president,
Voters in a majority of states are now allowed to vote before Election Day, either in person at sites designated for early voting or by returning a ballot sent to the voter's home. A record number of Americans are expected to mail in their votes this year. Here's how it works.
Tomorrow, we'll look at how so many people voting by mail may delay the announcement of a winner. While the U.S. Senate this week will likely confirm President Donald Trump's pick for the Supreme Court, Michelle Quinn reports that the nation's attention is fixed on the final full week of the presidential campaign.
Ahead of the U.S. election on November 3rd, President Donald Trump will likely see a win on one front. Senate Republicans are expected to confirm Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Trump's pick to be the next justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. Democrats have objected that the nomination shouldn't go forward so close to Election Day. The Senate vote comes as former Vice President Joe Biden, a Democrat, leads in most nationwide polls in his bid to be the next president. But the race appears neck and neck in key battleground states, which could decide the outcome. One issue on many voters' minds is the nation's response to COVID-19, the disease caused by the coronavirus. Vice President Mike Pence said he would continue to campaign this week despite key aides testing positive for the infection. The issue has been a struggle for President Trump, said Chris Christie, the former Republican governor of New Jersey, who also tested positive recently and was hospitalized.
If it looks like it's going well and it's diminishing, you're going to get the credit, and otherwise you're going to get the blame. And I think it's been the single toughest issue for Donald Trump to deal with in 4 years and maybe determinative for the election. We'll see.
Both campaigns will make a final push this week to win the hearts and minds of voters who are not solidly in one camp or another. Rahm Emanuel is the former Democratic mayor of Chicago and former chief of staff to President Barack Obama.
And I think that what has always been the case is that Donald Trump is a centrifugal force. Those who care about him are going to show up. Those Democrats who've been angry over the last 4 years, they're going to show up. And that the other voters that Joe Biden needed to win have been exhausted by these 4 years. They are tired. They don't want Donald Trump in their lives.
As people continue to vote, the nation is holding its collective breath in suspense over who will be the next U.S. president. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
U.S. Senate Judiciary Republicans have approved President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, to fill the vacancy left by the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg last month, despite protests by Democrats. The vote is too close to Election Day. VOA congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson looks ahead to the Senate confirmation vote this week.
With only Senate Judiciary Committee Republicans present,
Mr. Chairman, the votes are 12 yeas, 10 no votes.
The nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett advances to a full Senate floor vote. Republicans praised Barrett for vowing not to allow her personal views to influence her decisions.
The law of Amy will not be applied to a case in controversy. It will be the law as written in the Constitution or by statute or whatever regulatory body she's going to review.
But Senate Judiciary Democrats dispute this and boycotted Thursday's vote, calling the process illegitimate.
The United States Senate has never considered a Supreme Court justice this close to a national presidential election day, especially one in which tens of millions of Americans have already voted. The American people oppose this and can see the hypocrisy in real time.
But polling shows support for Barrett grew during her confirmation hearing.
Clear majorities of Americans want Judge Barrett confirmed. Of our fellow citizens who formed an opinion, roughly 2 out of 3 want confirmation.
Democrats argue Republicans are rushing to confirm Barrett ahead of Election Day because they anticipate court challenges to the record numbers of mail-in ballots being cast due to concerns about in-person voting during the pandemic.
Time and time again, the president has said he needs Judge Barrett on the bench when he raises his baseless, outrageous claims about mail-in balloting.
Democrats did participate in last week's confirmation hearings for Barrett, raising concerns she could cast the deciding vote in key cases on abortion rights and the Obama administration health care law that provides insurance coverage to millions of Americans.
We wanted to show what was at stake for America if Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed. We made our case about risks to affordable care, especially the Affordable Care Act, reproductive freedom, the right to vote, and equality for all.
Still, Barrett's confirmation is all but assured given the Republican majority in the Senate, leaving Democrats with few options.
In terms of optics and politics, Democrats, their whole goal was to bring attention to this, to bring attention to the hypocrisy of some of the members who were on film just 4 years ago saying that this shouldn't be done.
Just days ahead of the presidential election, Barrett's confirmation fulfills a key Trump campaign promise.
This is, in many ways, the single most important accomplishment President Trump has achieved in office. In nominating a principled constitutionalist to the Supreme Court, President Trump was honoring the promises he made to the American people.
A full floor debate on Barrett's nomination will run through this weekend, with the final vote on her confirmation expected Monday night. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, we thank you for watching.